People underestimate a Sigma male because they misread his quiet nature, misunderstand his intentions, and assume his lack of noise means a lack of power. They think he's passive, uninterested, or simply not a threat. But what they don't see is the depth of analysis behind every move he makes, the discipline behind every silent decision, and the strength he never advertises. And when reality hits, it hits hard, because the person they dismissed turns out to be the person they should have never overlooked. Here's the hook. Why do people consistently misjudge the Sigma male, and why do they always regret it later? This video breaks down the psychological reasons behind that mistake, and how the Sigma turns underestimation into leverage. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to UltraWise for deeper psychological breakdowns that challenge how you think, not just how you feel. And comment one word to activate the algorithm, underestimated. Now, let's expose the truth behind why people only realize a Sigma's power after it's too late. People misjudge his quiet nature as lack of confidence, not realizing it's strategic observation. People often assume that silence is weakness, that the one who isn't talking must be unsure of himself. But his quiet nature is not hesitation, it's calibration. While others rush to fill the air with noise, he studies the room with an attention so sharp it borders on surgical. His stillness is a vantage point, not a void. In every environment, he steps back just far enough to see what others overlook. The power dynamics, the subtle insecurities, the motives disguised as friendliness. He isn't hiding, he's gathering data. And the moment he understands the landscape, he becomes the only one who can move without guesswork. People expect confidence to be loud, visible, and constantly performing. They don't realize that the strongest confidence is the kind that doesn't need an audience. His silence creates space, a space where the truth of others reveals itself naturally. When someone's voice rises, he notices why. When someone avoids eye contact, he registers what they fear. When someone postures, he sees the insecurity behind the performance. Others miss these cues because they're too busy reacting to them. He misses nothing because he reacts to nothing. His quietness is his shield and his weapon. And in that silence, people expose themselves more than they ever would if he spoke. They tell on their ego, their intentions, their hidden agendas, all because they assume he's harmless. They assume the man who observes is the man who doesn't know. But he sees everything before he acts, and that is what makes him dangerous. By the time he finally speaks or makes a move, it's already too late for anyone who underestimated him. His quiet nature wasn't a lack of confidence, it was the foundation of his advantage. They assume his calm personality means he's passive, when he's actually calculating every variable. People mistake his calmness for inaction because they don't understand what stillness looks like when it belongs to someone who thinks in layers. On the surface, he seems unbothered, unmoved, almost detached, the kind of person who watches storms without flinching. But beneath that controlled exterior, his mind is constantly running simulations. Every pattern, motive, and consequence is measured with precision long before he takes a single step. His calm is not the absence of thought, it's the discipline of mastering it. While others rush into situations powered by emotion or impulse, he holds himself steady until every variable has been accounted for, every risk understood, every outcome weighed. People expect intensity from strength. They expect raised voices, quick reactions, visible dominance. But his power comes from internal equilibrium. When the room gets loud, he gets quieter. When others panic, he becomes even more composed. This unnerves people because they misinterpret his calm as weakness, when in reality it is the greatest sign of his control. He doesn't react because reacting means losing the upper hand. He doesn't argue because arguments reveal too much. He doesn't rush because speed is useless without direction. His silence is strategy. His stillness is preparation, and his calm is the result of knowing exactly what he's capable of. And when he finally decides to act, the shift is unmistakable. The man they thought was passive becomes decisive, direct, and impossibly efficient. By the time others realize he wasn't disengaged, he was calculating, he has already outmaneuvered them. They learn too late that calm doesn't mean harmless. Calm means ready. Calm means aware. Calm means he was thinking 10 steps ahead while everyone else was still stuck on the first. His calm personality isn't passivity. It's the signal that he only moves when movement guarantees impact. They think he has no ambition because he doesn't broadcast his goals until his results appear out of nowhere. People often mistake silence for stagnation. When someone isn't loudly announcing their goals, posting their plans, or seeking validation for every step, the world assumes they're not moving at all. That's why a Sigma male is so easy to underestimate. He builds in an environment most people never check, the one behind closed doors. While others perform progress for an audience, he tracks his evolution privately, quietly stacking skills, refining his discipline, and sharpening his strategy where no one can measure or interfere with it. To the outside world, he looks still. To himself, he knows he's accelerating. His ambition is not loud, because loud ambition leaks energy. He doesn't waste time convincing people of what he's capable of. He uses that time becoming capable. He doesn't talk about plans because talking dilutes the urgency to execute. Instead, he disappears into solitude, into routines no one sees, into habits that compound silently. Every improvement is intentional. Every adjustment is calculated. He builds systems, not fantasies. He tracks progress with internal metrics, not applause. And because he stays private, no one notices the momentum until it's irreversible. The shock always comes later, when his results break the surface. People look at the outcome and assume it came out of nowhere, not understanding the years of invisible work beneath it. They call him lucky. They call him gifted. They say he changed suddenly, but nothing was sudden. Nothing was luck. Nothing was magic. It was consistency without an audience, discipline without discussion, ambition without announcement. And the moment his results finally appear, the same people who doubted him begin to rethink every quiet moment they once dismissed. They realize too late that a man who doesn't broadcast his goals is not without ambition. He's simply too focused on achieving to waste time talking. They interpret his independence as isolation, not understanding it's the source of his strength. People often confuse being alone with being lonely, and that misunderstanding is exactly why they underestimate a Sigma male. When he pulls away from the noise, when he stops participating in unnecessary conversations, when he chooses a quiet evening over a crowded room, observers assume something is wrong. They think he's avoiding the world, hiding from responsibility, or lacking social confidence. What they fail to grasp is that solitude is not his weakness, it's his power source. In the silence they fear, he finds clarity. In the distance, they misread. He gains perspective. Independence is not a retreat. It is the strategic ground where his mind sharpens, his vision resets, and his next move begins to form. While others drain themselves trying to maintain image, status, or approval, he steps away from the performance entirely. He doesn't need external noise to feel alive, and he doesn't need constant engagement to feel connected. His independence isn't a wall, it's a filter, one that protects his energy from the chaos of people who take more than they give. He chooses where to invest attention, who to allow into his world, and what environments deserve his presence. The fewer distractions he entertains, the stronger his focus becomes, and the sharper his intuition grows. What appears to be isolation is really strategic space-making, a deliberate clearing of emotional clutter so he can operate at a level others rarely reach. And then comes the part people never expect. Independence makes him resilient in ways that shock everyone. When life collapses for others because their stability depended on external validation, he remains grounded, calm, and in control. He has trained himself to stand alone, so nothing can pull the ground out from under him. His strength is not loud, but it is undeniable, and it was built in the very solitude people assumed was weakness. They never realize the truth until they face him in moments that require composure, clarity, or decisiveness. Only then do they understand that independence was not isolation. It was preparation. They underestimate his boundaries, believing he's easy to influence, until he cuts ties instantly and without warning. People often mistake a Sigma male's calm demeanor for softness, assuming his quiet listening, his lack of confrontation, and his willingness to give others space means he is easy to sway. They believe his silence is permission, his patience is passivity, and his tolerance is weakness. What they don't see is the invisible line he draws long before anyone realizes it exists, a boundary that is firm, final, and non-negotiable. He doesn't announce it, he doesn't warn anyone, and he doesn't debate why it's there. He simply observes. He watches how people move, what they try to take, how they test limits, and whether they respect what he never verbally stated, but always made clear through his behavior. The mistake people make is thinking they have more leverage than they do. They push a little, then a little more, expecting him to bend because he hasn't reacted. They assume his lack of emotional outbursts means he's too invested to walk away, too attached to detach, too agreeable to enforce consequences. What they don't understand is that the Sigma male decides everything internally first. By the time someone crosses the line, he already knows exactly what he will do. He won't argue. He won't fight. He won't explain his disappointment or outline the specific moment they lost access to him. He just disconnects, cleanly and without hesitation. And when he cuts ties, it's absolute. No dramatic exit, no second chances, no negotiation. The suddenness shocks people because they never realized how thin their margin was or how closely he was evaluating their respect for his boundaries. His silence wasn't weakness, it was data collection. His patience wasn't passivity, it was restraint. His distance wasn't emotional withdrawal, it was the prelude to removal. When he finally walks away, people see the truth they never expected. He was never the one being influenced. He was simply giving them enough time to reveal whether they deserved a place in his life. They mistake his emotional control for emotional weakness, unaware it gives him a psychological advantage. People often assume that because a Sigma male doesn't explode, overreact, or show visible frustration, he must not feel things deeply. They misinterpret his composure as emotional softness, his calmness as lack of intensity, and his self-discipline as an inability to confront his own inner world. What they fail to recognize is that his emotional control is not suppression, it's mastery. He has trained himself to separate feeling from action, impulse from intention, reaction from decision. While others let their emotions spill out in arguments, impulsive choices, and unnecessary drama, he keeps his emotional landscape contained, measured, and private. This gives him a unique advantage. He sees everything clearly while everyone else is blinded by their own noise. His silence during tense moments confuses people. They expect visible irritation, raised voices, or defensive reactions. Instead, he becomes even calmer. He slows down. His breathing settles. His voice stays grounded. It disarms people because it denies them the emotional feedback they're used to manipulating or relying on. They don't realize that during these moments, he is gathering information, not losing control. He is evaluating intentions, identifying pretenses, and dissecting the emotional dynamics at play. While others make mistakes because they respond out of anger, fear, or insecurity, he steps outside the moment, thinking strategically instead of reacting emotionally. This emotional neutrality becomes his shield and his weapon. It protects his peace while simultaneously revealing the emotional instability of those around him. When people finally understand the truth, it's often too late. His lack of visible reaction didn't mean he was weak. It meant he was impossible to manipulate. And when someone realizes they cannot sway him emotionally, they also realize why he is consistently the one with the psychological high ground. They assume he's detached, not realizing he simply refuses to invest in superficial connections. People often misread a Sigma male's distance as emotional coldness, when in reality it's precision. He doesn't scatter his energy across every passing interaction, nor does he pretend to care just to maintain appearances. His restraint is intentional. He knows that most relationships are built on convenience, proximity, or social obligation, none of which hold real value for him. So when he stays quiet, observes instead of engaging, or chooses solitude over group dynamics, others think he's aloof or disconnected. What they don't realize is that he is filtering. He is studying the room, noticing who speaks with depth and who hides behind noise, who shows authenticity and who performs for attention. His distance isn't a lack of interest, it's a safeguard for his time, his energy, and his emotional integrity. In conversation, he listens more than he reveals. He notices contradictions, insecurities, and the small tells people overlook in themselves. While others rush to impress, overshare, or build instant bonds, he moves slowly and deliberately. He knows that genuine connection cannot be forced or fabricated, and he refuses to dilute himself to fit superficial expectations. His silence becomes unsettling for some because it makes them aware of how shallow their own intentions often are. They want quick validation, quick rapport, quick belonging, all things he has learned to view with suspicion. To him, emotional investment is a serious decision, not a social reflex. Eventually, people begin to understand that his selective engagement is a sign of strength, not apathy. He is not detached. He is discerning. He will give everything to the right person, but nothing to the wrong crowd. And when someone finally earns access to his inner world, they realize that the depth he carries is far richer than anything he ever shows on the surface. By then, it becomes clear why he guards his connections so fiercely. He's not avoiding closeness. He's preserving it for those who can meet him on the same level. They think he won't take action until he executes decisively with zero hesitation or announcement. People often convince themselves that a Sigma male's silence equals inaction. They see him observing instead of debating, listening instead of explaining, planning instead of announcing, and they assume he's passive, hesitant, or unsure. What they never realize is that his quiet is not a pause, it's preparation. While they spend time talking about their ambitions, convincing others of their plans, or seeking validation before they move, he is eliminating noise, studying patterns, and sharpening his next step with surgical precision. His calmness fools them into believing he lacks drive, but he is simply allergic to wasted motion. He has no interest in performing effort. He saves every ounce of energy for the moment action actually matters. And when that moment comes, everything changes instantly. There is no warning, no build-up, no dramatic speech about what he's going to do. He moves like someone who has already played the entire scenario in his mind 100 times. Decisions that would paralyze others become straightforward for him because he already stripped away emotion, ego, and external pressure long before reaching the crossroads. People who underestimated him feel blindsided, not because he hid anything, but because they assumed inactivity where there was only disciplined intention. His execution appears sudden, but the truth is, it was inevitable. What truly shocks people is the precision of his results. He doesn't take half steps or test the waters. When he commits fully, and the outcome looks almost effortless. He doesn't ask for approval, doesn't justify his choices, and doesn't seek applause afterward. His action speaks for itself, revealing a competence others never saw coming because they were too focused on his silence. By the time they realize what he's capable of, he has already moved far ahead, proving that the quietest person in the room is often the one who was preparing to win all along. When people finally understand a Sigma male, it's always too late. They spent so long misreading his silence, doubting his intentions, and assuming his lack of noise meant a lack of power, only to watch him act with a clarity and precision they never expected. His strength was never in speaking louder, it was in moving smarter. If this breakdown helped you see the Sigma mindset from a new angle, make sure you subscribe to UltraWise for more deep psychological insights that cut through the noise. Drop the word unseen in the comments so I know you made it to the end, and tell me one thing people always misjudge about you.